YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Guys, welcome to 2024. You know, I'm only 11 days late on that. The fact is I have the flu right now. This is the first hour that I have felt better in the last about 4 days. My family has been in and out of sick for the last about 2 weeks. So I just felt like it was time to bring y'all a video, let you know what's going on, and also talk about a topic that I've been thinking of the last few days. And I think it's really relevant to right now. You know, fishing has changed over the last handful of years. And there's no doubt about it, forward-facing sonar has adjusted the way that we look at certain things, how fish react to baits, how they eat, why they don't eat in some situations. So I really think it's important to talk about this topic. But hey, real fast though, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you'll do that. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Click that subscribe button and click that notification bell so you get notified every single time I post a video. So guys, let's talk about it. And I'm talking about color. You know, more times than not, you know, I can get on any tackle website, whether it be Academy, Tackle Warehouse, any of them, and there's always new baits. There's always all these brand new baits, and they have these most realistic, crazy colors. I mean, some of the most realistic baits I've ever seen have been posted probably just in the last 5 years. Now, do realistic baits work? I'm going to say, sure, there's certain situations that a realistic bait works. But does it really matter? Does it change the way the fish eats the bait? I'm here to tell you, 95% of the time, it doesn't. It doesn't change the way they react. It doesn't change the way they eat. You know, if anything could be argued here, I would say action of the bait is more important than the color. And maybe a color hue, but not an overwhelming bluegill pattern that looks identical to a bluegill spawning. You know, I've seen colors out there called spawning bluegill, and the fact that you think you might need a color called spawning bluegill and that looks identical to a bluegill that's spawning is a little bit ridiculous. So let's talk about it. Why is color so important, and how do you pick the right colors? You know, so for instance, like on Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn, some of these lakes down here, you know, one of the most popular and sought-after colors for deep cranking is chartreuse and blue. What does chartreuse and blue look like, really? I mean, does it look like a shad? Does it look like a bluegill? Does it look like a bird? Does it look like a squirrel? I don't know. I mean, but when you get it in the water, and you get it 10, 15, 20 foot deep, it kind of looks like a shad. Actually, it looks a lot like a shad. But when you hold it out here, it doesn't look like much other than a big chartreuse blob. Okay? So why would they eat that over the most realistic bluegill color that there is? And a lot of that has to do with the amount of light penetration and the fact that fish are colorblind. You know, when they see that crankbait scurrying past them really fast and you're reeling the crankbait really fast, you think they really have that much time to look at your crankbait? No, that's not a thing. They can't sit there and be like, oh, it's got too much blue in it, I'm not going to eat it today. Or, oh, it's got a little bit too much purple on the side and it needs more purple on the top. No, they eat it because they react to it, or it resembles something they might be hungry for. The more realistic the bait, the less likely I am to catch a fish, from what I've noticed. You know, I'm not saying that. There's definitely going to be people in my comments that say, hey, man, I catch the fire out of them on this particular crankbait and this particular bluegill color or this particular realistic shad type color. Cool. Completely agree with you. But at the same time, I feel like day in and day out, I can take a more bland, a more solid color like a chartreuse and blue, a white and blue, you know, a black and blue, and really just do everything I need to do. Now, the times and situations where I've seen more realistic colors matter is when you're in really, really clear water. And I mean like 10, 15, 20 foot of visibility. I've seen color matter a little bit. But only in certain situations and in the particular action of the bait. So in glide baits, for instance, I've seen color matter more in that than I have a crankbait. Because, the glide bait is going like this. It's going slow, and it's swimming slow, and they actually can see it. You know, when you get in a situation where you're using forward-facing sonar, and you only got about 1.5 foot of visibility, I could throw a solid white glide bait and just as likely to catch that fish as you would be throwing the most realistic looking color out there. But when you have that visibility and they can track it from a really far, long ways away, that's when color seems to matter. But if you're reeling a crankbait really fast, or you're throwing a lipless crankbait, or you're throwing a square bill, a spinner bait, the hue itself matters way more than the detail, if that makes sense. I don't need the 5 specks of blue or the 2 little lines of purple to make it successful. I just need it to be green, or I just need it to be brown, or I need it to be orange. Even the guys up at, let's say, for instance, Table Rock, Lake of the Ozarks, Norfolk, when they're throwing wiggle warts and they're cranking wiggle warts around, most of the time, they're throwing like a phantom green, a phantom brown, something that's brown or green. And that's some of the clearest and cleanest water you can find in that general area, minus maybe Norfolk from time to time. Bull Shoals kind of gets a little dirty as well. But, you have some really, really clean water in some of these places. And when you're catching them cranking, it's not about like this super duper realistic bait as much as it is the color hue. So, swim jigs, for instance, a swim jig. Like, I love fishing a swim jig, but I throw like 3 colors. Literally, that's what I throw is 3 colors. I throw a shad color, and it's actually one my dad makes me. It is the coolest shad color I've ever seen. I honestly don't even throw any other shad color anymore. I throw that one all the time. And maybe I'll show it to y'all one day. It's just one that he hand ties for me. And I think there's a part of me that I just like the color it looks like and the fact that he ties it for me, so it's even cooler that way, that my dad has something to do with my success, and I just find that awesome. So I throw that one particular shad color, and it's kind of a mix between a white and a transparent shad. It just kind of has a bunch of different stuff going on in it. And then I throw a black and blue, and I throw a green pumpkin, or a bluegill. Actually, those are interchangeable to me. I'll throw the bluegill if I just want some orange in it on the bottom, so I don't have to paint the bottom of a bait, or just throw straight green pumpkin. I think the more complicated we make that situation, the worse we are as fishermen. The more baits we got to carry and things like that. I honestly don't even throw a red swim jig. I've tried it quite a few times, especially in situations where I've been catching them on a red trap or a red square bill, something like that. But day in and day out, I catch them on white, green pumpkin, black, and blue. And when it comes to a chatterbait, it's basically the same thing. But I will include a red one from time to time, like a fire crawl or something. Because it is such a similar bait, has a vibration of like a lipless crankbait. And so I do tend to get some bites on that. But once again, extremely simple. I might change my blade color because I do think blade flash, especially in certain places, does make a difference. But once again, I'm not going to have 20 different blade colors. I'm going to have like a black, a silver, and a gold. And that's it. I don't try to make it complicated. Color is probably the biggest scheme that there is out there when it comes to selling tackle across the board. Do you need 40 different colors of lipless crankbaits? No, you don't need 40 different colors. You just need different color hues. Same thing with crankbaits. There's actually a poppin' perch, a Strike King poppin' perch that's called bluegill. And it is a true image of a bluegill with like a watermelon red tail. And it looks cool, but at the end of the day, I still catch them on about 3 of my favorite colors. I throw white, I throw black, and I throw warmouth. And the only reason I throw warmouth is because Todd got me hooked on it, and it's just a great spawn color. Anytime they're on a spawn, you catch them on warmouth, and it just is killer, absolutely killer. But I really think as fishermen, we get so caught up, so caught up in different colors and thinking that you have to have this or you have to have that. I give you a perfect example. So I was at Watts Bar this year, and I was actually catching them on a Strike King Game Hog, and I was catching them on green pumpkin blue, just is my favorite color in that, and I didn't have enough of them, and I was getting a bunch of bites on it to the point where I was like, they were pulling it off and all this stuff, and I called my dad, and I'm like, man, I've only got like 2 packs of this thing, and I am getting a bunch of bites. I don't know what I need to do to, be successful here. Do I need to get a bunch of different things, like different colors? And I look at my box, and I start digging through my truck, and I always have a bunch of extra backups for a lot of things. I find one extra pack of green pumpkin blue, then I find some blue crawl, then I find some green pumpkin, and then I find some, I think it was like a pumpkin green, and I just found all these colors, but not in, I only found one pack of the green pumpkin blue. Well, I ran out of them really fast. I mean, like, super fast. What do? I just start picking up all the other ones, and I got bit on every one of them. The pumpkin green, the green pumpkin, or the blue crawl, it did not matter. And it stresses that point to me even more because I tend to fall victim to that as well. You start getting a bunch of bites on a color, and you're like, man, is it the color or is it what I'm doing? Is it the action? Is it where I'm at? And those things are so much more important than just looking at the basis of color. So, realistic, non-realistic, guys, focus more on where you're at, the action of the bait, what you're doing, and more times than not, if you focus on those three things, you're going to be way more successful and you'll catch way more bass. But guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all on the next one.